Problem 28 discusses decentralization and the use of performance evaluation systems in those decentralized units. So let's look at the information that we have for Field Sports Company. We have the financial informations from the last month. They give us the actual results for all the sales, variable expenses, contribution margin, traceable fixed cost, and division segment margin. We're also provided with the flexible budget for that same period. So we're comparing what we thought we should have spent on these sales compared to what we actually spent. Your requirements ask you to calculate a performance evaluation report, which is going to require you to finish the information that we see here, to identify the type of responsibility center that we see in this organization, to identify any variances that exceed both 4,000 and 10%. We'll take a look at that in detail in just a moment. It asks us to consider, should only favorable, unfavorable variances be investigated when we're performing a performance evaluation? And how do sales volume drive our changes in our flexible budget? Should we put equal weight on variances that exceed a certain amount? And which balanced scorecard perspective is being addressed by a performance report? So we'll take a look at some of this information along with some different some additional perspectives that could be used for the balanced scorecard. But let's begin first with our performance evaluation report. We take the information that was given to us, the actual and the flexible, and we actually had 24,000 more in sales than we had budgeted, which was a 5% increase. We would expect to have more variable expenses when we have more sales because they move together, and we do. But in this case, we have 9,000 in additional variable expenses compared to the 24,000 in sales. So our contribution margin has increased. And your book asks you to think about this. What is driving the increase? Is it volume or sales price? Because either could cause our sales to increase. Also, we have traceable fixed expenses. Usually fixed expenses are going to remain the same regardless of the amount of our production, but we see in this case we had budgeted $26,000 in traceable fixed expenses, but we ended up with $37,000. And so this is $11,000 more than we had anticipated. It is a 42% increase over what we had anticipated. And so your book asks us to take into consideration any variances that exceed 4,000. Well, they all exceed 4,000. However, only one of them, traceable fixed expenses, exceeds 4,000 and 10%. So even though we had a 24,000 increase in sales, that's only a 5% increase over the 450,000 that we had budgeted. And so if it's not a 10% increase or decrease, then we're not going to spend, based on this organization's goals, a significant amount of time evaluating these variances. In the same sense, the traceable fixed expenses increased by 42% over our anticipated amount. So for this column, this is significant and it does need to be evaluated. Now your book asks you, can you determine if this is a cost, revenue, or profit center? And it is obviously a profit because we are analyzing sales and cost, contribution margin, and division segment margin. So we're looking at the profitability of a company when we are using a performance evaluation report via the flexible budget. Now, the requirement 3 asks us to identify those that exceeded 4,000 and 10%, and we see that this is only traceable fixed cost. So we would want an explanation for this. Do I have a new piece of equipment? Did we acquire an additional lease? Did I hire an additional salaried supervisor? So yes, we would want to analyze the traceable fixed expenses and see what's happened to cause this 11,000 and 42% increase. Now, your book asks, should we only analyze unfavorable variances? No. As we saw earlier in our lectures, we can sometimes have favorable variances that need to be evaluated as well. Why are we so far ahead of our sales? Why are we so much lower than our budgeted expenses? And if these are truly ways that we are being more efficient or generating more sales, then we need to consider adjusting our budget to those amounts. But if for some reason there are inefficiencies going on as a result, we need to adjust for that as well. So favorable budget differences can have implications as well, right? And usually the flexible budget variances, notice your book says, are not due to sales volume. Usually they're due to a difference in cost, and that's what we're seeing. Our differences due to our actual prices varying from what our standards actually were. Right? And no, we do not place equal weight on variances that exceed 4,000 because, once again, we have to recognize even though it's a $24,000 variance, it's only 5% above our increase. Does not justify an investigation or an analysis at this point. That's why we have the 4,000 and 10% for our requirement to begin an investigation. So which part of the balanced scorecard does a performance evaluation or performance report address? It is the financial perspective. Okay, so obviously we are addressing the financial components of our organization, our sales, our cost, and our margins. So this is the financial perspective of the balanced scorecard. Your text asks you to identify some key performance indicators for the other three perspectives. What were they? Customer, internal business, learning, and growth. So your text provides a number of key performance indicators that you can use to evaluate how well your company is doing with your customers, such as customer satisfaction, your market share, things we discussed in the text, repeat customers, customer complaints. Internal business, we're looking at, can we improve our cycle time? Are we developing new products? How many warranty claims? So these are internal business perspectives. And then learning and growth. Are we training our employees? How many hours? What percentage of the time do we have downtime with our computers? What is our employee satisfaction and turnover? So multiple KPIs that you could use, but the performance evaluation report is a key performance tool that we will use for the financial perspective of the balanced scorecard.